Back to Double Fries, No Slaw. Richie, it's been a few months. We took a little time off for summer, but the guys are back in fall camp. The season is 20 days away from today, which is kind of crazy. And listen, we're doing this live tonight, and then we're going to go live next Sunday at some point. Probably just keep this at 6 o'clock. We're a little late today. We'll blame Richie. But we're going to go live again next week. And then the week after that, it's game week. So it's crazy how soon it is. I feel like a lot of off seasons just kind of drag by. This one seems to have, I don't know, feels like to me it's gone a little bit faster. But how have you been, man? Oh, I lost him. All right, he's back now. That was anticlimactic. But Richie, you there with us?
Yeah, I'm here. It said sinking.
But all that said, feels like the off season's gone a little faster than normal, which maybe is a little surprising off of 2-10. But how you been, man?
Good. I had a really long weekend. Almost had a heat stroke playing golf. Had a fantasy football draft. Had a bunch of friends in town from out of town. And it was a very eventful but very busy weekend. And, it's good to be back to these live shows. It's fun to do the, pre-recorded videos and whatnot. But something about being live, it just feels better.
Yeah, we have to police ourselves a little bit because we don't want to mess up or get in trouble or canceled or whatever. But no, it does feel better when there's people in here watching with us. So we appreciate anybody that tuned in. We will, unless something crazy happens, I think we'll just be back to like 6 o'clock from here on out. Crazy things happen or come up or we have to switch times around. We'll let you know. But I think we'll be 6 o'clock every Sunday night talking about the week before, talking about the game the day before. And so make sure that you join us. Make sure that you are subscribed and you don't miss it. We're inching closer to 19,000, and then I feel like when we get to 19,000, then I can really say like, hey, let's get to 20K. But you have to hit 19 first to be able to get there. So appreciate the folks already in here. Make sure you hit the like button, the subscribe, the share, all that stuff, and we'll get to it. Richie, let's talk about. First thing we want to talk about is the schedule a little bit. We are going to, and I wonder how much we agree on this. We'll spend more time, I think, on the later ones, less time on the earlier ones. But the games that you're most confident in, we're going to go from easiest to hardest on FSU's schedule, which again, they get underway in just 20 days, 19 if you watch this on Monday morning. But less than 3 weeks away. Let's go through our game, the 12 games on FSU schedule from easiest to toughest. I'll start us out. I mean, I think East Texas and A&M and Kent State are the easiest two games on the schedule in that order. Do we have any disagreements there?
That's my 1 and 2. You have an FCS school and then, Kent State. I was curious. They are literally the lowest ranked team on Bill Connelly's SP Plus rankings. I think those two are no-brainers. I think the next one we might agree on as well, but then we might have some disagreements coming up.
Yeah, you can go. I gave the last two, so what's your next one?
At Stanford. I think
interesting. I
think the dynamic of having to, take a 5-hour flight, likely on a Thursday, could throw a wrench into things, but I just don't think they're very good. It's not a tough atmosphere. It's just a game that it's one of those inexcusable games if you lose it.
So I had Stanford 4th, and I'm taking a guess that we just flipped 3 and 4, which I'm not going to cuss you out for being off by 1. But if you don't have this next one, if you don't have my number 3 as your 4, then I kind of want to know what your logic was on it. I had Wake here. I had Wake Forest here. I considered Wake and Stanford very similar, both replacing coaches, both bottom of the ACC in talent, but playing at Doak seemed a little easier to me than having to travel out to Stanford. I don't think either roster is like crazy better than the other. I think they're pretty similar, but being at home made Wake a little easier to me. And then I put that Stanford game. Did you have Wake at 4?
I have Wake at 5.
Oh, wow. So what was your 4?
Yeah. So at Virginia, it's going to be likely a noon or 3:30 game.
No, Friday night. That's a Friday night.
Friday night game. Okay. So at Virginia still. Again, it's not a tough atmosphere, and I just think Wake Forest is the better team. So, I mean, either way, I a lot of a disagreement early on, which is nice because we don't share these lists with each other beforehand. But yeah, I think at Virginia is a slightly easier game than Wake Forest is.
So again, I think I think I had Virginia next. So our first five are the same, just the three are out of order. Wake being at home is again a big deal to me. Playing in Doak is a bigger deal than having a Friday night or a cross country. So some disagreements on our top five. What did you have as your sixth toughest game?
So my next two are home games, but I'll just say the number 6 for now, and that's Pitt.
Okay, I agree here. I agree.
Okay.
I had Pitt, then I think we're going to agree on it. Pitt, and then Virginia Tech.
Correct. Yep.
And I made Virginia Tech a little tougher because I think Drones is a quarterback who is mobile and worries me. It's also coming off of the Clemson game, right? We play Virginia Tech the week after that, whereas Pitt, well, I don't even know who you play before Pitt. Do you have a bye week after Miami? How does that work? I think you have a little bit of a break before you play. Oh, you play Miami and then Pitt, but you don't travel. You're home for both of those. Correct. So coming back from Clemson, having to play Virginia Tech, I think Virginia Tech has the better quarterback. I agree with you here. 6 and 7, Pitt and Virginia Tech.
All right. What's your number 8, TJ?
Actually, wait. Yeah, 8. I mean, it's going to Raleigh. Which I did confirm today that I am going to this. So anybody, I know Hunter is in here a lot. I know that we've got some other people maybe from NC State, just from some of the realignment stuff that we've done that watch this. I'm going to Raleigh. We go to, this is not why you guys tuned in. You don't really care about this, but I'm gonna tell you anyway. We go to Blue Ridge every year for the week of Thanksgiving. And we've always gone up on Friday. And then we're there Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Usually come home on Thursday or Friday. And then obviously go to the Florida game on Saturday. I have arranged this to where our cabin's about 5.5 hours away from Raleigh, which is not a short drive by any means, but I am going on Friday night to Raleigh. First time ever. And then I'm getting up on Saturday and meeting the family in that Blue Ridge area. We stay right outside of the city. So, yeah, I think that's a tough one for sure. I think that's probably to me, that's the kind of the game that a lot of people's emotions and what you think of the season may ride on, because if you lose the ones that are tougher than that, if you win the ones below, 8 and 4 is a lot different than 7 and 5. But that's a game that I think is going to be incredibly tough from everything, right? I think NC State has a bounce back year. I think Dave Doran's a good coach, and then that's just been a house of horrors that even EJ and the guys couldn't win when they were there. So yeah, NC State was an easy number 5 for me.
Number 8. But yeah,
fifth toughest.
I agree with that one. And I think you could easily make an argument that Virginia Tech or Pitt might be the better team as the season goes on. But maybe I'm just still having, nightmare flashbacks of games that we've lost, the way we've lost them in Raleigh, that going back to, Christian Ponder's days when, we're on the 8-yard line about to punch it in at the end of the game, and they botched the handoff, and NC State recovers it. There's been a lot of heartbreaking days in Raleigh, so maybe that's what played a role into me putting them above Pitt or Virginia Tech. But I think they're all close to equal teams, but I just think that is the tougher game, especially with Pitt and VT being at home.
Yeah, and you also have my guy Glenn in here. This is live. Yeah, we see the comments. If this was pre-recorded and I was able to tell you guys the comments that are coming in, that'd be pretty good. But yeah, also I talked about how tough that October was in 2022. When you think about how tough November is here in 2025, where you're on the road at Clemson, home against Virginia Tech, a mobile quarterback, and then on the road at Raleigh and Gainesville all in a month. Let's be fair. If things don't go well, the end of the year is probably not going to go pretty, right? And I do think the team bounces back. I think they have a better year, all these things that we've said all summer. But I hate to even talk like this before the season starts, but the chance of your buy-in being higher for the Pitt game is it's higher than, you know what I'm saying? There could be some quit by the time you get to NC State. I hope that doesn't happen. I'm not cheering for that. I want to go up and see us win a game up there. That'd be amazing. But that factors into. So later in the year, on the road, Friday, again, a Friday night in the ACC. We've got 2 Friday night ACC games. No favors there by the conference, of course. Yeah, that's way up there. All right, so I think that our 1 and 2 are going to be the same 2 teams, and I think that our 3 and 4 are going to be the same 2 teams. Maybe. We've had some disagreements, though, so I don't want to assume anything. So I've got 3 and 4 as the rivals. Or I guess that'd be 9 and 10. I'm looking at it the other way.
Yeah,
the third and fourth toughest. I've got them as the rivals. You too?
I do.
Okay. What order?
I have Miami strictly because it's a home game, and then at Florida, and I have a lot more trust in DJ Lagway than I do in Carson Beck. So that's really what it came down to.
Okay, so I agree with you. I have them 3 and 4, or again, if you look at them the other way, 9 and 10, the 9 and 10 toughest games. The one thing I will say about the Lagway, so I agree with you on Miami than Florida, home, away, all those things. I don't know that I have more confidence in Lagway than Beck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is not me to like talk crap about this kid or anything, but like he's been on campus for like 16 months. He's had 4 injuries. Like I'm not confident that he even, and I do think that I don't think Carson Beck is going to light the world on fire. I don't think he's going to be the best quarterback in the ACC or anything like that. But I have pretty good confidence that he'll probably be out there. You know, I don't know that I'm confident that Lagway will be out there at the end of the year. I am not cheering for that. I'm not hoping for that. You know, but I think availability is the best ability, and there's a chance that he wouldn't be out there. I also think that Lagway's ceiling is incredibly high. I think that he could be the number 1 overall pick in 2 years, right? Him or Arch. But I also think you need to see him, like we kind of know what Beck is going to be, and a lot of what we think about DJ is a lot of wish casting, like thinking he'll get there. Last year, he was really good with the deep ball, but not very good short to intermediate, not very good at just moving the chains. How much do his 4 injuries now limit him being able to use his mobility? I think he takes a step forward. I just don't know that, you know, there's a lot of hype around, oh man, he's going to be a top 3 quarterback in the SEC or anything. I don't know that I'm ready to buy that yet. I don't know that I kind of need to see it. Right. And so I actually think I think Lagway's ceiling is much higher than Beck's. I think he'll be drafted higher than Beck when, you know, in their respective drafts, but I don't know that I have more confidence in him. I went with this solely on the fact that Miami always quits at the end of the year, or always quits at some point in the year, and they will have played their 2 games before us are Florida and Notre Dame. So I could see, you know, they play Notre Dame and Florida in September before playing us in October. So I could see that being a rough spot for Miami. And then home and away is a big deal too. Not that having to go on the road to Miami is ever very challenging. So, all right. So I do agree with you there, but I'm not ready to crown Lagway with the Heisman just yet, like some of their fans are.
I'll be interested to see if we disagree on these last 2.
Well, I have Clemson as the toughest game. So I have Bama as the second toughest. I just think that I like Clemson a little bit more than Bama this year. I like Klubnik a little bit more than Ty Simpson in his first game. And I think going on the road and playing at in Death Valley is more tough than playing Bama at home. So I had Clemson as slightly tougher than Bama.
So I had it flipped. I had at Clemson number 11 and Alabama number 12. I just think Alabama has more talent, consistent all over the field. I'm not a huge Kalen DeBoer fan, but at the same time, you know, Dabo has proven to be a good coach in the past, but he's really, you know, fallen off a good bit to where I was shocked that he was not even mentioned for the Alabama job when it opened up. And I think there's a reason for that. You know, I think he shoots himself in the foot more than he needs to. Going to Clemson is not going to be easy. I don't think Florida State wins either one of these 2 games, quite frankly. So it doesn't really matter if they're, you know, the 11th hardest or the 12th hardest game on the schedule. But I do think Alabama, because again, Florida State's going to have a brand new team. I know Alabama has a lot of new pieces coming in. I just think Alabama is going to be the tougher team. And I asked my wife, Lindsay, who's an Alabama fan, to
she's biased
for me. Yeah. So, that's how I ended up there.
Would you, and so maybe by you saying that maybe I know the answer to this. I think based on what we saw from Bama last year, I think I would take Clemson like straight up. Like if both these teams played on a neutral, I think also, so again, we disagree. So I'm not arguing and just kind of giving a little more context for my thought. Playing Bama week 1 to me is much different than playing them week 10. Like we'll play Clemson. Right. And so if I was playing Bama in week 10, I think I'd probably think a little bit differently about it. but you are getting a quarterback who for 3 years couldn't beat out Jalen Milroe. And so if that is the quarterback you get in week 1 on the road, I have more confidence in Florida State pulling an upset there than I do on the road against against who could be the number 1 overall pick in Cade Klubnik. So, but all that said, week 1, I would take, now week 11 might be different, but week 1, I would take Clemson over Bama head to head based on, what we've seen from Bama. Now they may come out and just shock everybody this year and never lose a game, but I would take Clemson head to head on a neutral site for sure.
Yeah. And I think that's a fair point because, that was my thought process a few years ago when we opened up with LSU in New Orleans. And, I believe I said on the show, y'all can go fact check it. I'm 99% sure I did. I said, Florida State is going to win this game, but it's because it's Brian Kelly's first game. It's a completely new team, essentially. But if we were playing them there in week 8, 9, 10, I would probably have predicted LSU in my preseason predictions for that game. So I completely get your point. And at Clemson is obviously a much tougher atmosphere than playing at home. And this might sound silly, maybe if it was an 8:00 kickoff for Alabama, I might have thought a little differently because I've seen what Doak looks like at 8:00 for a huge game. And I know the home field advantage that gives you. But playing at Clemson is definitely the tougher environment, obviously. So I don't know. I thought last I saw Bama was favored by 12.5. I don't know if there was a future on the Clemson game or not. But again, it was a coin flip to me, but I just think Alabama in the trenches has the advantage over Clemson, and that's where football games are won, unless you have a truly elite quarterback, which Klubnik may be, but I think he still has a lot to show. Obviously, the ceiling is there. He like you said, he could be the number 1 pick. He's top 5 in everybody's preseason Heisman picks, but I need to see him do it for an entire season before I can fully hop on board the Klubnik train.
Yeah. This is not part of the show at all, but I am hammering Clemson -3 to start the year over LSU. I just am not buying them. So to any Clemson fans that happen to be tuned in, you're welcome. Yeah, I'll say this too. Home and away was a big factor for me in that one. If we were on the road to Tuscaloosa and at home against Clemson, I would have everything else aside, I would have absolutely flipped these and not thought twice about it. So, all right. I see Glenn has a super chat. Let's give Garnet Gold some love, and then we'll answer Glenn's super chat and then go on to our next segment. GarnetGold.com. Make sure you are shopping with them. What are we, 19, 20 days away from kickoff? Get your order in. Look, I'm wearing what is this? I don't even know what this is, but something from Garnet Gold. I don't know. It's a short sleeve, quarter zip. I don't know. I like the teal. Some people hate it. Doesn't matter. But no matter what color you like or what style you like, no slaw, NOSLAW will get you 15% off of your order at garnetandgold.com. Go in store if you're in Tallahassee and hit that Pensacola location on game day. It's a great vibe, and we appreciate Garnet and Gold for their support. All right, on Glenn's question here, top couple of reasons. What's the issue? Richie, give me 2 reasons. We'll go 1-1-1-1. But if we don't hit 500, what's your number 1 reason we won't hit 500? Like, what are the issues that you could foresee not letting FSU get there?
I think he was a great pickup, but the most important position in any sport is quarterback, and more so in college than in the NFL, in my opinion. So if Tommy does not work out, then that would be the reason. If he had, a DJ type season where, we all had high hopes and it just clearly did not work out, that would be number 1 for me.
Yeah, mine is, I'm going to get real granular with this one. I think if you lose to Virginia, right, I think we both just did our easiest to toughest rankings, and we had Virginia pretty low, right, as the 4th or 5th easiest game, right, somewhere around there. If you're losing that one, and, obviously if you've lost to Bama 3 weeks before that, and then you play Miami right after you play Virginia, I mean, you're talking about starting 2-3. And I think that Virginia game is a huge swing game. And to me, it's the most important game on the schedule. Now, if you beat Bama, you turn around and say hindsight's 2020, that was the most important game. But if things go about like the odd makers think, if you lose that Virginia game, I think you start looking at the rest of the schedule and saying, man, there ain't a lot of more free wins on this schedule, right? You couldn't go win in Charlottesville. Are you going to go win at Stanford? Are you going to beat Wake? Are you going to beat Virginia Tech? Are you going to beat Pitt? So to me, I think if you're finishing under 500, it's because you've lost to Virginia, and that's a massive game for me. Richie, what's your second one?
Yeah, and this is a low hanging fruit, really easy answer, but it does matter. Health of the team, injuries.
Yeah, just commented that.
If you lose key players or anything like that, that's a huge deal. We've seen injury riddled teams at Florida State that have struggled, and it might sound like an excuse because every team has injuries, and this is an extreme outlier to an extent. But that 2013 Florida State team only lost one starter to injury, and he was replaced by some guy named Jalen Ramsey. So health of the team, it's all about luck, really. It is, because people are. When you're having a bad year and a lot of injuries, everyone wants to go blame, the strength and conditioning program must be trash. And then the next year you only lose 2 or 3, impact players. And they're like, maybe it's not as bad as we thought. There's injury luck is a very real thing. We saw a very nasty injury in one of the preseason games earlier, or last week, I guess you would say it now. And it was just a freak injury, and those things do happen. So I know it's an easy answer, a cop-out, but injuries, that could turn the season off the rails.
Yeah, to me, it's this goes right in line with Richie's. And then what we'll do is we'll answer the other side of this. If we do go 500, above 500, what happened? Appreciate Glenn for the super chats and the love. But the other one to me plays into Richie's a little bit. It's depth on the trenches. Richie already mentioned this, but it's so important. And, Florida State had an offensive line that was ranked in the hundreds last year. And so you as bad as you might have thought quarterback play was, or running back play, or wide receiver play, or anything else, if your trenches aren't working, right, if you can't run the ball or you can't block anybody, then you end up with 8 sacks against Florida and 7 fumbles. And you have what our running backs average like less than a yard before contact. I think those are massive, and so if there are injuries, that depth on the offensive and defensive line, right? I like the starting defensive line. We talked about that a lot, but I'm not super confident in the depth. I like the starting offensive line. I'm not super confident in the depth behind them. So that kind of plays into Richie's, but it was what I was thinking as well. All right, Richie, let's do this. We'll just do one each for this one. If they go above 500, if they are able to bounce back and at least be somewhat respectable, right? Even, 7 wins isn't going to make anybody thrilled around here. But if they're able to go above 500, if they're able to hit their win total, right? 6.5, 7.5 wins, somewhere around there, what has gone right?
For me, this is a pretty easy one. It's Norvell being able to adapt to taking more of a CEO role.
I like this. Yeah.
Give the offense entirely to Malzahn. Trust him. He's proven himself in what he can do. I think but bringing in Herb Hand was a huge deal, because when you have an offensive coordinator and O-line coach who are on the same page entirely, and they know the offense they want to run, they've proven it works at multiple stops. I think Norvell just taking a step back, being the motivator coach. Like if you're playing CFB 26, you can pick an option. I would actually love for Norvell to be the recruiter coach, but just be the motivator and kind of run the program, hold people accountable. But it's really hard, and we saw this with Jimbo, to take a step back when you've been running the offense and let someone else do it. Jimbo always said he had a 5-year plan of when he was going to give up the offense. That never happened, and it was never going to happen. So I think that's the biggest deal is can Norvell put his ego aside, and people will say, he's a super humble guy. Yes, I think he is, but every head football coach at a major university has an ego. Can he put that aside, even if the season starts out rough, and put total trust into Gus Malzahn? I have to think that was part of the contract negotiations and, the recruitment or courting process to get him here. That's what I would love to see. And I think if he does that, the defense will be good enough and the offense will put up enough points to win more games than not.
If we go above 500, we have we improve our turnover margin exponentially. I loved Richie's answer, though, before I get to mine. Yeah, if we go over 500, if we get to 7.5, 8 wins, somewhere in there, then the hires have worked out, right? Gus was effective in working with Tommy. The defense was more aggressive. We got better teaching on the offensive line, all those things, better development at wide receiver. Then the hires were right. And Richie had a better answer than I'll ever have. But, you first forced more than 7 turnovers, right, in a season. I think we forced 7 turnovers in 12 games last year. year. I think our turnover margin was minus 16. So we gave the ball away 23 times, if my math is not terrible there. So yeah, you have a positive turnover margin, right? You've got to be on the season. You've got to be taking it away. Now, if you want to win 9-10 games, then you need to be plus 16, right? But if you at least get that pretty close to even, you're taking the ball away about as much as you're giving it away, you should be around 500. I mean, that's just turnovers are largely luck at times, but a lot of times tied to success, right? You're giving teams extra possessions. And over the course of 12 games, if you turn the ball over less than you take it away, you're going to win more games. So turnovers are, they were terrible last year for us. We weren't aggressive on defense. I'm hopeful that Tony White can help that and fix that a little bit. And obviously I hope, Castellanos does what he did last year, where he didn't turn the ball over nearly at all. And the running backs do a good job of holding on to it as well. So great question. We'll clip that up. We'll make it a segment. So good job there for a good kind of off the wall question. Happy to try and answer those if and when we can when we're on here. All right, Richie, freshman breakout candidates. The one thing we've talked about a lot is recruiting, and I don't want to harp on it, but I do look around and I see other places that have like big time freshmen that are ready to break out. And I don't think Florida State's had that much. I do think Landon Thomas had a nice year last year, all things considered, who was throwing him and the blocking that was happening. Amari Williams flashed at times. You saw some young guys get in the secondary here and there. But I do think that Florida State will have a few more freshmen that actually see the field. And I still, I don't think last year's class was anything that you're going to write home about or go crazy about. But I do think there are 3 or 4 guys that could really break out and have good years for them. And it all kind of starts and ends with Ousmane Kromah, who, I go back and forth in my mind, Richie, on like how quickly I think he could really make an impact for FSU. In my mind, it's hard to shake the fact that Dalvin didn't break out until about week 5 or 6. And even that was due to an injury to Mario Pinder, or I don't know if Dalvin goes off against Louisville like he actually ended up going off against them. And then obviously going off against Miami and everybody else that he did. So it's hard for me to think that Kromah comes in and just like dominates Bama or something like that early. But I do think that he's your most likely breakout candidate as a freshman. I don't think Florida State's in love with, I don't think they'd publicly say this. I don't think they're in love with the running back room outside of him. I think that's why they went out and got a transfer in the spring window and Gavin Sawchuk out of Oklahoma. And so we'll see what Roy Dell's able to bring. We'll see what Lucas is able to do, or Sawchuk or any of these guys. But I think by the end of the year, I don't want to bet on it. And I don't even know if you could bet on something like this, but I'll bet you $5, right? I'll do that. That Kromah leads the team in rushing this season. Out of running backs. Maybe Castellanos is way up there too, but I think Kromah will lead the team in rushing by the end of the year and be truly a true freshman breakout candidate for the Noles.
Yeah, and I think one big factor that goes into play is when you look at the true freshman breakouts, what position do you see the most across the country? It's typically running back or wide receiver,
sure.
Right? You'll get an occasional freshman quarterback who just goes off, but you don't get many breakout anyone in the trenches on either side of the ball. Maybe defensive back. Travis Hunter was a unicorn. He was able to do both receiver and corner. But I think running back is where you do see a lot of ones that truly break out. And even if he doesn't do it against Bama, I would love and maybe we'll do a special over under before the Bama game, but one of them should be how many carries he gets in that game. Because how much does Gus Malzahn and Mike Norvell trust him, who's never played a college game, but a highly sought after recruit? I think, I do think he's definitely a possibility. I'm excited to see what he has. And, you mentioned, I think Roy Williams is a fine college running back, but you don't leave Alabama for any other school except maybe in Ohio State or Georgia, right? Unless you were looking for a better opportunity in terms of playing time. So I think that's, very accurate. So we'll see, but I'm excited to see him and hear the reports from fall camp as they continue to come out, hear what happens during the scrimmages. I'm sure he'll get a lot of work in the scrimmages, and it's going to be exciting to see what he turns into. And hopefully if he does have a huge breakout season, we can keep him, because now every year's free agency.
Yeah, no, it's actually kind of ridiculous the way that it works, but I don't want to complain about that right now. So he was also slated to go to Georgia. He flipped from UGA. And so if you can pull a talent that UGA definitely wanted, that certainly leads well. All right, another flip. This one Javon Boggs, wide receiver. I have really pushed back on this and talking with some people around FSU and saying like, dude, stop hyping up like a freshman that transferred from you, like trying to like poke holes in the idea that he is all that he is. And I keep getting told like, no, dude, shut up. Like he is like that good. I've heard he has the best hands on the team. My arguments are like, dude, he was a wide receiver that was committed to play for a run happy coach, like in Gus Malzahn. Like, is he really that good? And, with maybe a slight tweak or, hopefully not something long-term, but, if McCoy's a little bit banged up, could Boggs come in the slot at 6'1" and really make a difference for you? I don't know if it's against Bama again, but I mean, I think your top two wide receivers are Squirrel White and Deuce Robinson, not in that order. But I think those are your top two guys. And I wouldn't be shocked if by the midway point of the season, or maybe even before that, if Boggs is not your wide receiver 3. I've actually heard really good things on Elijah Moore, getting a little bit more burn this summer or this offseason. But Boggs is, I think, a wide receiver candidate that could absolutely break out for FSU.
So you kind of hinted at it. The opportunity is there, right? It's unfortunately Florida State does not have the best receiver room in the country, not even the ACC, but there is opportunity. Sure. I've not heard a ton about his fall camp or anything like that yet, but if, his hands are good, catching the ball is one of the most important things the most important thing for a wide receiver, right? I don't care if you run a, 4.2 40, but if, Tommy puts a dime on you, 40 yards down the field and you can't hang on to it, and then what good are you really? So yeah. I do think with him, he's very intriguing. He's a 3-star recruit, but, it had a lot of interest from other programs. And, again, it's all about the opportunity for me. We are looking for someone to step up at wide receiver. And even your number 1 and number 2, they're not number 1s at most schools that are championship contenders. So, again, it's all about the opportunity with him.
Yeah. A couple on the defensive side. I'll go quicker on both of these, but Kevin Wynn or Juju Wynn is somebody that I could see. One, because he's a freak, and Texas made a really big push to get him to flip, and Florida State was able to hold on there. One of the bigger signings that Odell's had in the last several years before he kind of stepped off the field. Kevin Wynn is one that I think you're going to need to rotate there a lot of the defensive tackle position. Do I see him coming in and blowing things up against Bama? No, I don't. But I do think as the year goes on, that could be somebody that has to spell Jackson at times. And you're talking, could Kevin Wynn be a guy that gives you 15, 20 quality snaps a game? I do think he could, right? And I think that the trenches are an incredibly hard place for an interior guy to break in. But I think that he would be your closest guy, on either side of the trenches to do that. I don't expect anybody on the other side of the line to do it. And Shamar Arnaud out of Carrollton, Georgia, defensive back corner. I think that he could really break out and have a really good year for the Noles too. I think that Jeremiah Wilson probably really has cornerback 1 locked down. I know that between Rawls and Joseph and other guys, you've got probably cornerback 2's position locked down too. But I think Arnaud could get in and mix it up. You remember A.Z. Thomas getting in his freshman year, kind of toward the back half of the year. I think Arnaud would be my pick in the secondary to get in. So between Wynn and Arnaud, those are my top 4.
Yeah, I think Wynn has an opportunity. It's rare, to see a true freshman come in and make a huge impact in the trenches. But at 6'2", 350, basically, he was one of the highest rated recruits in Florida State's class. Like you said, Texas made a huge push at him. The 247 has him ranked as a 96 overall. And I mean, that's prospect ranking, not where he ranks in terms of the players ranking. That's just his overall ability rating. I think he's a guy that could definitely come in. And like you said, he's not going to start from day one. He's not going to, come in and have, 3 sacks or, 4 tackles for loss against Alabama or even, the next few games on the schedule. But he's definitely, he was one of the recruits that I was most excited about. So I think he's my number 1.
Yeah, I think what's cool for some of these freshmen that we're talking about is, yes, that Alabama game is pretty daunting week 1 to think that, some freshman is going to come in and blow them up or anything like that. But I do think that you mentioned Travis Hunter earlier, not to bring up sore subjects, but he as a true freshman was able to go in and dominate because he was so much better than everybody else around him, right? Like he went down to the Jackson State level and he was able to, our next 2 games are against Kent State and East Texas A&M. there would be opportunities for these freshmen to get in and mix it up and really get a lot of game experience in that first month of the season. Whereas if you didn't have those games early, maybe you're not able to do that. And so I do think that will be a help for them. And if, man, I think you play Bama and then you have one of those gimme games and then you have a bye week and then you have another one of those gimme games, which is stupid scheduling, and you shouldn't have, a bye week between East Texas A&M and Kent State is ridiculous. But, you're talking about like 4 weeks of preparation for those guys to take a ton of snaps in those games. I think that's a big deal for FSU and will be a help to get them some early action that could expedite their process of speeding things up. Remember in 2023, you played LSU first, then you had a gimme game, and then you played Clemson right after that in week 3. So this year you have a little bit of a lighter load to get some of those guys acclimated. So it'll be interesting to see. Again, not the recruiting class I think that Mike Norvell or any FSU fan wanted at the end of the day, but more freshman guys that I think can make it kind of instant impacts than they've had in the past, right? Even last, the class before that had like Charles Lester and Luke Krummenhoek and Cam Davis. I mean, none of those guys came in and made massive impacts as a freshman. They just, even though they were highly rated, they just weren't like that, I guess, at the end of the day. So is what it is. All right. We have a tailgate going for the game. Again, 20 days from today, 19 days from today, based on when you're listening to this. Make sure that you come hang out with us right next to Doak. We'll have all you can eat, all you can drink, food, shade, drinks, adult drinks. Have a good time. A couple of vendors out there. We don't usually do this, but a couple of vendors that'll be doing giveaways and stuff like that. So make sure that you come hang out with us. You can go to fsubama.eventbrite.com and get tickets for that. We actually, I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it on here, but stay tuned to social media and everywhere else that we talk about this kind of stuff. We may have some updates coming for you on that, but come hang out with us, come tailgate with us before the Alabama game. We'll have a TV out there so you can come watch I'm sure we'll put on Texas, Ohio State at the noon kick. So if you don't even want to go into the game, you just want to watch the TV out there, that's fine too. I don't care. Just don't break my TV. Last thing today, Richie, and we'll get out of here. There's a lot of Jimbo talk. There's a lot of, not even rumors. Like Jimbo just came out and said, hey, I want to get back into coaching. And that doesn't really surprise me. I actually spoke with a couple of people before we got on here. One of them very well. I'll tell you when we get off here. I just can't release names while we're here live. But I spoke with some people. Yeah, I do think I don't think he's BSing. I think he would like to get back into coaching. My question is, would you take Jimbo back? Listen, I like Mike. This is not me firing Mike. Nobody get on my case for this. But would you take Jimbo back at FSU next year if things went poorly for Mike this year?
Depends who else is out there. I lean towards no, because
okay.
Can
I follow up on that real quick before you?
Yeah.
I want to follow up with a question. I'm not going to steal your shine. Do you think FSU could pull somebody that would be better than Jimbo? I guess would be the question. Like, do you want Jimbo or like some group of 5 coach that's like Mike 2.0 would be? Cause I don't think they're pulling, like they ain't pulling somebody great in my opinion. So like, that's kind of what I would think to answer your question.
So I would say I would take Jimbo over probably any group of 5 coach, because doing it at the G5 level and doing it at the highest level is very difficult. It's a transition. We've seen it, Urban did it. But it's been done, but why open up old wounds? I'm very appreciative of Jimbo. I think when he was in Tallahassee, especially that run from 2012 to 16, it was phenomenal. It was, I woke up every Saturday morning thinking Florida State was going to win. I cannot say that right now. And the national title team that he put together, he recruited them. He put the coaches around them to develop them. You know what the average score was for that team? Their average win margin was 42 point something points per game. And that would have ranked like second or third highest in total points per game by anyone else. Just looking at their offense. So you had the best.
The defense gave up 11 points a game. Like it was insane.
You had the best offense, the best defense in the country.
And the best kicker.
And the best kicker. Shout out Roberto. There was just he put that team together, and that was when he took over after Bobby. I remember seeing an ESPN article where they let I forget which reporter it was, but they let him into one of his coaches' meetings, And he said, we need growing ass men in a recruiting meeting. And that's exactly what he went out and got. And everything paid off. The tail end of Texas A&M, I don't know if it was warranted to fire him, but the thing about A&M, they have all the money in the world, so they didn't care. They're like, fans aren't happy, let's get rid of them. But I know a lot of Florida State fans who wanted Jimbo fired after 2011, and especially after 2011 when we had the several losses, bad losses. The one up at Wake Forest when he refused to start EJ, said he would only come in if it was an extreme emergency and nobody got hurt. And he's like, okay, EJ, go back out there. He made a lot of questionable decisions early, but he was early as a head coach. Long story short, I would not be upset if we brought him back. But I would lean towards somebody else if you could get someone at or above that level.
Yeah. So my thought would be, it would be there would be some awkwardness with it, right? There certainly would. But I try to think of who you could get. Yeah. And I don't think you're pulling anybody from the Big Ten or the SEC.
No.
Right? Could you maybe go out and get somebody at a lower level, like could you pull from Rutgers? Could you pull from Mississippi State? Sure. Do you want to? Right? Like, Mark Stoops, is he, could you maybe a bottom tier, but then are you wanting to, right? Like, is Mark Stoops a better coach than Jimbo Fisher, right? Like that, I think I'd lean Jimbo's way over that. Then I think okay, well, you could maybe pull somebody from the Big 12, but how many are there that you would just fall over, right? I know that certainly people in the comments will say Dion, but you'd be looking at the ACC Big 12 coaches and thinking who could I get that I know is better than Jimbo? Dilly would be a name that I think gets thrown around. I don't think he's ever leaving Arizona State, just personally. Rhett Lashley is a name that I think might get thrown around. Could you pay more than an SMU? Brent Key is an interesting name at Georgia Tech. I think he would be somebody you'd consider. Manny Diaz is a name that's come up if he has another good year with Duke. Fran Brown's a name that's come up. So, I think if you could go get a Fran Brown or Rhett Lashley or something like that, then that all is, you'd take that. But if you start getting into that next tier of okay, where are you going after that, right? You going group of 5? Are you going bottom half of the ACC? Are you going, bottom half of the Big 12? If that's where you're at, if you strike out on your first couple, I think you got to go, Joe. I think you got to make a play at it, right?
Let me give you a hypothetical. We're down to our final 2 options. Michael Alford has to make a decision, and the final 2 options are Jimbo and Gus.
Yeah, I'd take Jimbo, 100%.
Yeah.
Is Jimbo a little bit, Jimbo has been better more recently. I think they're similar in age, but I do want to look at that real quick. Jimbo Fisher age he's 59 and Gus Malzahn age. I think they're pretty similar. Ironically, they're both 59. And actually they're 21 days apart. So 19 days apart. My math sucks. They're exactly the same age. I think I'd lean Jimbo there. I'm not confident. I think Jimbo can CEO things a little bit better than I have confidence in Malzahn doing. I think Jimbo at his peak was better than Malzahn at his peak. I think Jimbo's familiarity and the fact that Jimbo would absolutely I would know that we would be in a good place from an organizational standpoint, because part of the reason he's not here or he wasn't here anymore was because we were so idiotic from an administration standpoint. And I know that he wouldn't come back unless we had things figured out, from the administration side. And so I don't know if Gus would demand that or not. I don't know anything about him, but I know that Jimbo would. So it would make me confident from that side. The other thing too, is I was talking to Harlan about this before we got on. You've seen some coaches return recently, from Scott Frost going back to UCF, Rich Rodriguez going back to West Virginia. This is not that crazy of an idea to think that a coach would maybe leave, not have the best experience, and then come back home to where he originally was. So I don't know, something to think about, but all things considered, I think I would take him back.
Yeah. Well, and I think the one thing that would intrigue him is you have a new president of the university. You have a new AD who is very much liked. The boosters have completely restructured how they do things. So he would not be walking into the same situation that he walked away from.
Yeah.
And the one thing that would be awesome is we would not be doing these videos throughout the summer talking about, are you concerned about our recruiting right now? Because that's one thing Jimbo knows how to do is recruit elite talent. He would just have to surround himself with assistants who could, develop that talent. And then, and I think he still has enough respect in the college football world among college football coaches that, some assistants may say, maybe I will leave maybe there's an up and comer from an Ohio State who's an assistant that a lot of people peg as, one of the top OC candidates in the country. He could probably convince him to come there. So I think it's something to consider. It's a fun hypothetical. Obviously, Mike Norvell is still the head coach at Florida State. I think we all still support him. We want him to do well. But if things, go off the deep end this year, then, there's going to be some tough decisions that need to be made in the Moore Center.
Yeah. Dude, I wanted Jimbo gone in 2017.
I did too.
Say that. I absolutely, I was like, get him out of here. I was thrilled that he was leaving. And then it's like you never know what you had until it's gone type of thing. Where we've had we've had a few, several rough seasons, two really good ones in there too, but a lot of roughness since he's been gone. So I also think that there'd be pretty clear expectations of like, hey, I don't think Jimbo would do it forever, right? He'd be 60 at the time that he would take any kind of a new job, whether it was here or wherever. I think he would probably have a plan of, hey, I want to do this for X number of years, whether that's 5 or 6 years, and then I want to move on, right, and get kind of back to where I, I'm not in the grind of it. So, yeah, I we'll see, right? We'll see what happens. I'm not projecting him here. I hope we win 16 games this year and win the national championship, but a lot of Jimbo talk on the timeline and everywhere else this week. And so thought it'd be fun to talk with you about it, Richie. So hopefully we didn't upset too many people.
I'll just say this as a closing thought on this topic. I think he wants to coach in the SEC.
We might be a few years away from that.
You heard it here first. August 10th, 2025. Double fries, no slaw.
Some people are mentioning Tony White. I think that on both coordinators, I think both are possible, but it would have to be such a weird situation that would lead to either coordinator getting promoted. And this is not like a hot board or, this was really just like, would Jimbo come back to FSU, whether it was next year or in 5 years or whatever. But on the coordinators, to me, you would have to have like a top 30 defense and like a top 80 offense or something where like you're losing games 17-14 every week and your defense is just unreal and your offense can't score like last year's for Tony White to get promoted, or the inverse for Gus to get promoted, right? The defense is atrocious and you're losing games 45-42 because your offense is going blow for blow, but your defense is, and I don't really see that scenario playing out. I think Florida State's going to be, considerably better than they were last year, but I think they're like, they got a little bit better at every position. They're a little bit better at quarterback. They're a little bit better at O-line. They're a little bit better at running back. They're a little bit better at D-line. They're a little bit better at DB. They're a little bit better at linebacker. And so it would just, I think Tony White would be fine. I think he'd be a great head coach. I think it wouldn't shock me at all if he is a head coach somewhere next year. But I think it'd take a really, really specific set of circumstances for that to happen. I also think that athletic directors like to make their own decisions. And Alfred, remember, didn't hire Norvell. And so I don't think he would want to promote from within just personally. I don't think he would want to promote from within. I think he would want to go out and get his guy. I don't think he'd want to tie his legacy. Because if let's be honest, if Alfred hires somebody and that person fails, Alfred's out. Like that's just how it works as being an athletic director. I think Alfred would want to go get his guy, not the guy that Mike hired, right, and promote. So I've seen some comments on different coordinators and stuff. Those are my thoughts there. It doesn't make me right, but that's just the way that I think it would go down if that was to be the case. Richie?
Yeah, no, I agree. Alfred, I think he was all in on Mike Norvell. I think he might have a little bit of pause after what happened last season because even with all the circumstances, 2-10 is never acceptable. 6-6 should only be acceptable maybe once every 8 or 9 years. It's Florida State. This is a program that finished in the top 4 in the nation 14 years in a row. Now that'll never be duplicated. But the expectations should be much higher here. And if they're not, then we have a problem. And I think Alford really understands that. So if things, again, Mike Norvell's still the head coach, we're all pulling for him. We want him to be successful because it makes things a lot easier to where we're not paying out $60 million just to fire a guy, then pay another guy $10 million a year to come in here because that's probably the going rate, even for just any somewhat big name right now. So we'll see what happens, but it's fun. We're having a couple hypothetical conversations here, but the season starts very, very soon. Very excited about it and cannot wait to getting into the meat of what the season looks like. We ranked the schedule today. I'd love to hear all of y'all's thoughts on who did a better job, TJ or myself, and the answer is myself. But
I promise you this. There is nothing worse than having to get on here after a loss, and we did that 10 times last year. So I promise you, if there's anybody that wants Florida State to be good, it is me and Richie, right? I think when we started this, we very much went down like the fan route of this, right? Like not trying to be a journalist or not trying to have insight on this or that or the other. Like we want to be pretty emotional and pretty raw as fans, and other people are able to maybe get away with not caring as much, I guess, because they it is their job or whatever. And I guess I do this for kind of a living too. But I promise you, there's nobody that hates when we lose more than me and Richie. I wanted to call out after that Jacksonville State game so bad it wasn't even funny. So
ironically, I think nobody wants Florida State to beat Alabama more than my wife because she knows that will just ruin opening weekend of college football for me. And she is a huge Bama fan.
So, all right, cool. Well, that is all I've got for this week. Hey, good numbers today. Our first live show in months. We will be back next Sunday. I think at 6 p.m. Richie, you don't have anything at 6? We'll just go at this same time. And we will talk more about what has happened. I believe the guys are scrimmaging literally right now. And so I have a call scheduled for as soon as they get done with scrimmage to try and talk about that. And so we may have a video dropping first thing tomorrow morning on what went on inside of that scrimmage. So make sure you are subscribed. I've got the itch, man. Even after a bad year, Richie, I am ready for the season. So I am excited for all that we'll do this year and excited for you guys to join us for it. So TJ Pittenger, Richie Barnes, Harlan Harris, making it all happen behind the scenes. We appreciate you guys. We'll talk to you soon. Go Noles.
Go Noles.